Preparation for the case. The year stay in Pretoria was a most valuable experience in my life. Here it was that I had opportunities of learning public work and acquired some measure of my capacity for it. Here it was that the religious spirit within me became a living force, and here too I acquired a true knowledge of legal practice. Here I learned the things that a junior barrister learns in a senior barrister's chamber, and here I also gained confidence that I should not after all fail as a lawyer. It was likewise here that I learned the secret of success as a lawyer. Dada Abdullah's was no small case. The suit was for £40,000. Arising out of business transactions, it was full of intricacies of accounts. Part of the claim was based on promissory notes and part on the specific performance of promise to deliver promissory notes. The defense was that the promissory notes were fraudulently taken and lacked sufficient consideration. There were numerous points of fact and law in this intricate case. Both parties had engaged the best attorneys and counsel. I thus had a fine opportunity of studying their work. The preparation of the plaintiff's case for the attorney and the sorting of facts in support of his case had been entrusted to me. It was an education to see how much the attorney accepted and how much he rejected from my preparation, as also to see how much use the counsel made of the brief prepared by the attorney. I saw that this preparation for the case would give me a fair measure of my powers of comprehension and my capacity of marshalling evidence. I took the keenest interest in the case. Indeed, I threw myself into it. I read all the papers pertaining to the transactions. My client was a man of great ability and reposed absolute confidence in me, and this rendered my work easy. I made a fair study of bookkeeping. My capacity for translation was improved by having to translate the correspondence, which was for the most part in Gujarati. Although as I have said before, I took a keen interest in religious communion and in public work, and always gave some of my time to them, they were not then my primary interest. The preparation of the case was for my primary interest. Reading of law and looking up case laws, when necessary, had always a prior claim on my time. As a result, I acquired such a grasp of the facts of the case as perhaps was not possessed even by the parties themselves, inasmuch as I had with me the papers of both the parties. I recalled the late Mr. Pincut's advice. Facts are 3/4 of the law. At a later date, it was amply borne out by that famous barrister of South Africa, the late Mr. Leonard. In a certain case in my charge, I saw that though justice was on the side of my client, the law seemed to be against him. In despair, I approached Mr. Leonard for help. He also felt that the facts of the case were very strong. He exclaimed, "Gandhi, I have learnt one thing, and it is this, that if we take care of the facts of the case, the law will take care of itself. Let us dive deeper into the facts of this case." With these words, he asked me to study the case further and then see him again. On a re-examination of the facts, I saw them in an entirely new light, and I had also hit upon an old South African case bearing on that point. I was delighted and went to Mr. Leonard and told him everything. "Right," he said, "we will win the case. Only we must bear in mind which of the judge takes it." When I was making preparation for Dada Abdullah's case, I had not fully realized this paramount importance of facts. Facts mean truth, and once we adhere to the truth, the law comes to our aid naturally. I saw that the facts of Dada Abdullah's case made it very strong indeed, and that the law was bound to be on his side. But I also saw that the litigation, if it were persisted in, would ruin the plaintiff and the defendant, who were relatives and both belonged to the same city. No one knew how long the case might go on. Should it be allowed to continue to be fought out in court, it might go on indefinitely and to no advantage of either party. Both therefore desired an immediate termination of the case if possible. I approached Tayyab Seth and requested and advised him to go to arbitration. I recommended him to see his counsel. I suggested to him that if an arbitrator commanding the confidence of both the parties could be appointed, the case would be quickly finished. The lawyers' fees were so rapidly mounting up that they were enough to devour all the resources of the clients, big merchants as they were. The case occupied so much of their attention that they had no time left for any other work. In the meantime, mutually ill will was steadily increasing. I became disgusted with this profession. As lawyers, the counsel on both the sides were bound to rake up points of law in support of their own clients. I also saw for the first time that the winning party never recovers all the cost incurred. Under the court fees regulation, there was a fixed scale of cost to be allowed as between party and party, the actual cost as between attorney and client being very much higher. This was more than I could bear. I felt that my duty was to befriend both parties and bring them together. I strained every nerve to bring about a compromise. At last, Tayyab Seth agreed. An arbitrator was appointed, the case was argued before him and Dada Abdullah won. But that did not satisfy me. If my client were to seek immediate execution of the award, it would be impossible for Tayyab Seth to meet the whole of the awarded amount. And there was an unwritten law among the Porbandar Memons living in South Africa that death would be preferred to bankruptcy. It was impossible for Tayyab Seth to pay down the whole amount of £37,000 and costs. He meant to pay not a pie less than the amount, and he did not want to be declared bankrupt. There was only one way. Dada Abdullah should allow him to pay in moderate installments. He was equal to the occasion and granted Tayyab Seth installments spread over a very long period. It was more difficult for me to secure this concession of payments by installments than to get the parties to agree to arbitration. But both were happy over the result, and both rose in the public estimation. My job was boundless. I had learned the true law of practice of law. I had learned to find out the better side of human nature and to enter men's hearts. I realized that the true function of a lawyer was to unite parties riven as under. The lesson was so indelibly burnt into me that a large part of my life during the 20 years of my practice as a lawyer was occupied in bringing about private compromises of hundreds of cases. I lost nothing thereby, not even money, certainly not my soul.